and welcome to this tutorial on typo3. In this tutorial I will be covering how to log into your website and change some basic user settings. So the first thing we need to do is go to our website. So in my case I'm using a website that is a demonstration and I've created a link earlier to it, so I just click here. So up here you should see your web address and you probably see the home page of your website. Now, in all the websites that we've created, we put in a link in the footer to your administrator login, and it usually says something like admin login or login. So just click that and you are taken here to your login screen. Now you just write in your username and password and press the login button. And you will probably see something like this. Now this is the basic typo3 login screen once you've logged in. So as you can see in the side you see the typo3 menu, which will be very useful in this tutorial and further tutorials, and you also see this typo3 toolbar kind of thing at the top, and that will say who's logged in, when you want to log out, your workspace, which will be covered in other tutorials. And if you are an administrator, you might see this, which cleans the cache. So to log in, so we've logged in successfully now, but as you can see, when you log in, you get this about screen. Now this is nice the first couple of times you log in, but it can get quite redundant and annoying after a while because it's not really useful beyond the beginning. So we want to change that. So to do that, we would go to User Settings, which is under User Tools in the typo3 menu. So just click that, and this kind of screen will load up. Now, you might find that all of these spaces are empty. If they are, just fill them in with the correct details. It can be very, very handy if you do this. So as you can see, I filled in my name and I filled in my address, and it also says notify me by email when somebody logs in from my account. So this could be very useful if you've given in out a login that's kind of generic and anyone could use it. So you can tick that box, and if you want to change your password, this is where you do it. So that explains the language and personal data section of the user settings. But there is another few tabs, and I'll quickly go through them. So if you press on Startup, you'll see this. Now you see these options. One says use condensed mode in backend for small screens. So if you have a very small screen, you can tick this box, and what that will essentially do is minimize or even get rid of this menu depending on what you're trying to do. It is good for smaller screens, but it isn't as convenient as this setup. So only tick that if you absolutely need to. Here we have a very interesting option called Startup in the following module, and this basically decides what you see when you first log into typo3. So when I logged in, you saw that About screen, which I now find quite annoying and I want to change. So I just go here and I press on the drop down and I get lots of options. I'll just put this down so you can see. And there are many, many options, but in my case I think that the most useful for me would be to start out in page mode, and I will go into more detail in page mode in further tutorials, but you'll see what that does. I would say either page or list is probably the best choice for most users. So I'm just clicking page and you can see it's chosen there. There's another option called show thumbnails by default, and this decides if you see little thumbnail pictures of any images you upload. This can be very handy if you have lots of pictures, but do be aware that it does affect your load time, so if you're on a slow connection this may not be your best option. Show help text when applicable, that's kind of obvious what that's talking about, and it's good to have there if it exists. So then there's the context sensitive help mode, and it says display the help icon only, so you only see this icon rather than seeing lots of text. And the max title length. Now this can usually be left alone, but for some people, if they're using incredibly long title names, it might be a good idea to up that. But it's usually not an issue for most people, so we're okay there. And then finally, the tab that I will be showing off in this tutorial is Edit and Advanced Functions. Now you can see enable rich text editor if available, file upload directly in doc mode, they're ticked by default, so I generally leave them alone. I would also leave that one alone because that can be quite annoying when things don't pop up when they're meant to. The other two options that are interesting is the recursive copy or the recursive delete, which you will see when you create pages and subpages. Sometimes you might actually want to delete all of those pages at once. Generally, you're not allowed to, but if this option is enabled, it will let you do that. So in this case, you could copy, and in this case, you could delete recursively. Again, these functions may not be available for all users. It does depend on what level of access you have. So if you don't see this, don't worry. It just probably means you are not a high admin user. It's usually not an issue for most people. And the admin function is again something that only admins will see and isn't really worth going into at this stage. So now that we're happy with how we've filled up all these boxes, we just save configuration. And you can see it just loaded and then showed me the page again. So now to see all my changes take effect, I will log out. So I just press the log out button at the top of the screen. And it takes me back to my login screen. I'm going to log in again. And you will see this time when we log in, we have the page menu displayed to us straight away, which is really handy. So that concludes this tutorial. To find out more about typo3, check out our other tutorials. And in other tutorials, we will be covering things such as adding a page, deleting a page, editing a page, adding any content or editing content, file uploads, and generally anything that will be useful to you in typo3. So thank you for watching, and this is Karina Wellness speaking for CSP.